This is the next part of the window construction series of videos, and we have to do, basically what you have to do is you draw out what's called a rod, which is effectively a full-scale sectional drawing. So I've used this piece of board before, just a bit of pine board, and it's got a faced off edge this side, so you can work off it because it's nice and square and parallel. So we put a line there. So there's the line which represents the bottom of the window. Now we've machined these sections. The glass goes in there. This is the bottom rail. So we line up the section, the bottom of the section, with that line. And then we simply and if you want to, you can draw around it all, but it's literally that face and that face that are important. Okay, now just the thing about the pencil, I've sharpened it to a point, I've sharpened it to a chisel edge. That way it doesn't wear down so quickly and it doesn't dig into the timber. So the next thing to do is to measure the height of the casement and then mark the top. So for the ease of marking, because the metric side is on this side of the ruler, and if I turn it around you won't be able to see it, we'll line that up with 825, and that line is the bottom of the casement. So then now we'll mark the top. So the end of the measure is 825 and naught is just there. Okay, so square that. That is the top of the casement. Then we take a casement section, which we've machined this as a top rail, and I'm about to put it the wrong way. So let's turn it over. The glass goes in there, down that deep rebate. Line that up with the back and the top line here, and then mark it with the chisel edge. There we go. So now we have a line there and a line there, and that's the sight line because that's the bit you see, and that's the setting forward line because it's set forward from the sight line, and this is all relevant to the shoulders on the tenon. So I'll just shuffle this along. So I'll just do that on the bottom rail markings. That's the sight line. That's the setting forward line. That's right, so you set forward away from the sight line to allow for the shoulder on the tenon. Now we've got a glazing bar in the middle of there, and that's a section of the glazing bar. That's 40mm. Those are, I can't remember whether it's 12 or 14, and that is 40 between there and there. So that wants to go there effectively, so it wants to go halfway between the sight lines. So what have we got? Now we've got a full-scale drawing. We can measure it up, and it's 698. 698. So you've got to divide that by 2. So therefore 2's into 6 go 3. remainder nothing. 2's into 9 go 4, remainder 1. 2's into 18 go 9. Yep, so 3, 4, 9. Three, 4, 9. Here's the centre point, and just to check your maths, that's 3, 4, 9. 3, 4, 9. That'll do. So then we can put this in the middle. Now, that should be 10 mil. So let's go 5 either side, and then we can just set this up. Hold it in place. There we are. And then just confirm the lines as setting forward line and sight line. Setting forward line, sight line. There we are. That's one part of the rod. We've obviously got the other section, i.e. the length of the top rail and the bottom rail. And it doesn't sort of work very well, because if we try to put it on this rod, then we would be interfering with that bit of drawing we've just done. So what we'll do is we'll put it up there. So we'll extend this line forward, setting forward line, sight line, and then it's 408. And this time, of course, because I'm measuring that way, you can see the numbers. 408, 410, there we go, 408. And this can get used then to mark out both the top rail and the bottom rail. But because we're talking between the two styles, we don't have to account for the depth of the bottom rail. So we can put that there, squaring off that line, and then with the chisel edge I'll just mark it all out. Not that it's necessary, but it just helps you to remember what's going on. Sight line, setting forward line. And of course we can use that there to set out the glazing bar as well. Right, let's talk about where we're going to put the mortice and tenons. The tenon wants to be somewhere in the middle of the timber, but it also wants to work around the shoulder, because where you've got a tenon, if you imagine there's a tenon piece of timber going in there, then one shoulder will be high, the tenon is where my finger is, and one shoulder is below, will be lower. So therefore you're better off setting out the mortice and tenons around the shoulder. So if we set it out here, it wouldn't be anywhere in the middle. So effectively that is one face of the mortice. That's where you set it out. When we're talking about glazing bars, here we are, you could actually put a tenon there, but it would be very dinky, wouldn't it? Yeah, and it would be more in the centre, but quite narrow. Or you could, and as I spoke about this earlier, you could put the, let me move that down there. You could put the tenon there, but it would be quite small. It's entirely possible. Or you could put the tenon here. And we spoke about this earlier, about if you want to reduce that, set that further in, then you can have that edge as the edge of the tenon, i.e. a bare-faced tenon. It's all down to how you want to style things and the strength. If you put the tenon there, then this is, well, it's not really, but it's liable to splitting. But when you've got the glass in there and the glazing bead, it'll be strong enough. If you wanted to, you could recess that into there just slightly. Just run a groove there, cut this extra long, and then that slots into there, and it makes it a lot stronger. Anyway, so this is how you set out a rod. Then you can mark the timber from it. I'll just mark out one piece, and I'll mark it out here so you can see. So you've got to remember, you've got to be able to transfer marks around. So around the timber, because remember I talked about the shoulders and whatnot. So all you do literally is just transfer the marks. You know, and this is not engineering, so therefore, you know, we're not to within the nearest thou. My hand's going to be in the way if I mark like that, so let's see if I can mark like that with the left hand and still keep it mostly accurate. So what you do then is you square those marks around, making sure you're fully aware of the shoulders. So the shoulders on the sight line are further towards the middle, and the setting forward is further towards the end. And the setting forward is where you've got the rebate. So let's just flip this round. So the sight line comes round there and round there, and you go halfway across. Then the setting forward line wants to be over there and round, and then we need to close this up, and then it goes down there like that. So when the tenon's created there, the two shoulders are at different heights. Right, I'm going to thrash on with this. I'll just go over that shoulder business again. If you could see here, that's the sight line, and that would be the shoulder line, okay, for a tenon. Now imagine that that is fitting there. There's a gap. So that's why you set forward from the face line, from the sight line, to fill that gap. So that's why, if you look at that, there's the sight line and there's the setting forward line. And if I run the pencil across, it probably wouldn't work very well. It lines up with the setting forward. So that's why the shoulders have to be different heights. And when you do this all the time, it's second nature. It's like everything. But when you don't, you just have to think for it a while and maybe make up a dummy or a mock-up and go, alright, that makes sense. Now, we just marked out a style, and the thing with the styles is, because you've got a bigger bottom rail, then the styles are handed, i.e. you can't turn them round. So that one, that's the bottom. there's the rebate. Okay, now then what am I going to do? This one, there's the rebate, but you have to mark it out that way so the rebates are facing each other and the bottoms are at the same end. If you just mark them out any old how, you'll find that there's a good chance they'll be wrong. So you've got to mark them in pairs and mark them as pairs. And so to reduce the amount of things you've got to think about, what you do simply is you offer the two. One's already marked, one's not. You offer them together with the rebates facing each other and mark one off the other and then mark them as A or B or what have you. So there's a pair. Literally, and you won't be able to see, let's move over here. Literally, you just transfer the marks across. Like that. So this is the marking gauge for setting out the mortices and the tenons. Let's see if I can just zoom in a bit. That pin is fixed, this pin is movable with this here, and it's all locked with that screw, and this block is adjustable. So I've set it up so that the distance between those 2 points is the same as hollow mortise chisel in the mortiser. And of course we're using the mortiser that we did the first experiments on in the 3-phase motor, running 3-phase motor off single phase set of videos. Anyway, so I've also set this up so that we're marking from the back of the frame. And it's not quite right, just wants a little half nothing. That's about right. So then what you do is you just mark like that and down the front like that. And if I can find my pencil, which should be about here somewhere. Where's the pencil gone? Here it is. Then with the pencil, all you do is just run the pencil down the scored marks, the scored lines, and then you can see very easily where you're going to work. Now, for the mortise, obviously you use the mortiser between the lines, but for the tenon must fit in the mortise without being slack, so therefore you cut on the outside of the line for the tenon and leave half of that line left, so that then it's the right size. If you cut down the line, of course, then the tenon will be too small and it will be loose in the mortise. So there's the rebate. So we're going to mark from this side like that. Okay. And then got to remember that we're going to stop there for that shoulder. So run the pencil up to there. And then this one you run it all the way up to the sight line. So these are the styles. So when marking the styles, there's the sight line. Rebate this side. So just mark from the setting forward line. The mortise doesn't, in this case, because the tenon is basically in the rebate, then the mortise doesn't want to go any further than the setting outline, because otherwise when you put it together there'll be a square hole there. So just make sure you know what you're doing. Think about it. If you're not sure, don't guess. Just think it through.